Hello, everybody, and welcome to the SoxProspects.com podcast, the web's #1 source for information on the Boston Red Sox from top to bottom, from Fort Myers to Worcester, across the Pike to Fenway, and all stops in between. Thank you all for listening. I'm Chris Hatfield. I'm joined by Ian Kundle. We're back in the pocket here for another episode of the show. Ian, we've got a lot to talk about in terms of getting out to the field, telling folks about what we've seen. You've seen a ton of Portland and Worcester. I got a little glimpse at Salem a few weeks back to report back on. We've got a lot to talk about as far as that goes, as well as the first promotions of the season. Seems a little bit early this year, but we can talk about why that is maybe when we get to that segment. End of the month of April. How are you feeling about the state of things right now in Sox prospectsdom at 1 month into the year?
I think it's kind of what I expected. I think there's been some nice performances. There's been some guys that maybe you were hoping would get off to a little bit of a better start. Kind of approaching that window where I think things start becoming kind of like
Clearer.
It starts to matter. It's about 100 plate appearances is around the number. So not most guys are not going to get there. The AAA guys will, but next couple of weeks I think is when you can start kind of making some takeaways and seeing where things are going.
Yeah, if you look at least entering tonight, the leaders in the system for plate appearances in the minors, we're talking like 100. Like there are 5 guys entering tonight in the system who are at 100 plate appearances, and they're all in Worcester, who started a week earlier than everyone else.
Yeah,
and then there's actually a pretty big jump to like Franklin Arias at 86 entering tonight. So.
Yeah.
Because that's what happens when guys are playing 5 games a week, and maybe getting dinged up, missing a few games here or there. So a little bit of time left.
But there's also been a lot of there's also been a lot of rainouts. Like
that's true.
Portland has a stat that they haven't played a weekend game yet this year. I think they haven't hosted a weekend game this
chance.
Year.
Oh, host. Host makes sense.
Yeah, I think they've all like 6 of them have been rained out.
Yeah, no, that sounds right actually, because this week they're actually playing 2 doubleheaders, which we
they're like split doubleheaders though.
Yeah.
They're like one's home, one's road. But I believe
it that way. That's smart.
Yeah. Wait, because it makes sense because it was a home game for Portland.
It was a home game, and they're basically losing the game. That stinks.
Yeah, you lose the home game.
Losing a gate's never a good thing.
No.
Luckily, things are fairly secure up in Portland. But at any rate, so we've got a bunch to talk about. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, there are a few things you can do to support the show. First, spread the word. Tell the others in the conclave. When you're deciding what color smoke to put up, just tell them about the podcast. Say, hey, while we're figuring this out, if you want to zone out a little bit, listen to some baseball talk, listen to the Sox Prospects podcast. You can also help by rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, or wherever else it is that you listen. And you can support us on patreon.com/Sox Prospects and get some sweet perks for your support of the show. And we want to thank our newest $5 level supporter, Danny G, who upgraded his level of support. It might have been before the last episode, but at least recently. So thanks, Danny, for joining that tier of support. We always appreciate it. And as always, send your emails to podcast@soxprospects.com. We want to talk about what you all want to hear about. So hit us up.
Not necessarily. We might just say we're not talking about that. So if you don't get that reference, I hate you. You do not get that reference. Have you not been on the internet at all? Did you not watch the Bill Belichick interview on Sunday?
Oh, sorry, Jesus. Yeah, so I don't know why that went over my head.
Come on.
I'm focused, man. I'm fully focused.
You're not
money
focused
on my mind.
The important things, like what is Jordan saying? Come on.
That's what I should have used for the intro.
We're not talking about this.
We're not
talking about that.
We're not talking.
It's my favorite meme going around right now.
Oh my God. That whole situation is wild. I kind of get where he's coming from. Like if you look at the release he put out, and I think that's probably.
You think he put that out? Come on.
I mean, with UNC and with Jordan, but
I'm gonna guess it's more the latter two than him.
Yeah,
he has no idea what's going on.
Yeah, he's the HC of UNC. That's all he cares about. I got to read that book now though. So. I do have 2 copies of The Education of a Coach, one autographed by Bill and one autographed by my dad. So
there you go.
Yeah, love it. Anyway, all right. Well, back on topic, Ian.
But that's way too much North Carolina football talk. Like this isn't
It's
we
true.
can move on from that. No
This
one
isn't the
wants to hear about
Fenway
North
rundown.
Carolina football. Yeah.
This isn't the Fenway
I was
rundown.
going to make that joke, and then I
Yeah,
decided
no,
not
screw
to.
it. He doesn't care. All right. Anyway,
Mid-major
we
football team.
we love Chris. All right. Moving on, the better Chris though. Anyway, moving on to update the newest news, Ian. Newest news in the news world. We finally got our not finally. We got our first promotions of the year pretty early, and I think we've alluded to the situation for at least most of these, where because of some of the pitching depth that the team has amassed at the upper levels of the system, there were guys playing a level too low to start the year. We kind of, it was borderline acknowledged. Like, there are guys in Salem who should have started the year in Greenville. There are guys in Greenville who should have started the year in Portland, but there just wasn't room. For example, we talked about Hayden Mullins, I think what might have been last week.
I might slightly disagree with there not being room statement in
I-
regards to one of the players we're going to get to in a second. But
we could talk
yeah,
about it. Sure.
yeah.
Fair.
I think it's valid with the pitchers more so than the position players that there wasn't
Yes.
room.
No, I was referring to the pitchers, and I'm in full agreement with you.
Okay.
They just wanted to make sure guys were starting and getting, or at least getting starter level innings, because we can talk a little bit about the pitcher usage this year is a little confusing to me. I've usually got my head around what they're doing by this point of the year, and I still just don't. But at any rate, recently the Red Sox, as we kind of called, I want to take credit for it, but it also wasn't terribly difficult to predict. Chain promoted some pitchers. The headliners being Hayden Mullins being promoted from Greenville to Portland, and Brandon Clarke, along with Matt McShane, being promoted from Salem to Greenville. I had predicted that Connolly Early would also move from Portland to Worcester. That has not happened and is not necessarily in the offing. I have a theory it might have to do with the fact that they have those two doubleheaders this week and they kind of need as many starters as they can get in Portland. But that said, I could also see them not doing that quite yet.
Well, they're stretching out Josh Winkowski again. So,
knowing that now, like, I could see that not happening.
Early also was, spoiler alert, I saw him this week. He was not very good. I mean, he was fine. Like, I get it, but it was.
It's not like he spent all of last year in Portland, right? Like McMullins had spent, I think, all of last. Like we talked about this last episode, how much time he had spent in Greenville, along with Jackson Paez with the IL.
Early only spent like half.
He
only spent 13. He got 36 innings there last year, so like a third of the season.
He can spend. I mean, he had a great start to the year. He had a rough start this week, which I actually good. It means there's things he can work on, right?
Well, I don't. It's interesting to me the way they're using pitchers too, because they're using them differently than they did last year. They're not doing the skip thing right now.
Well, they kind of are. They were doing the skip in Greenville. Right? But they weren't doing that last year though. I think they wanted to do it in Portland, but because of injuries, this is last year I'm talking about. Because of injuries, a lot of the year they only had a 5-man rotation, and with a 5-man rotation, you just can't because you need someone to start on both Tuesday and Sunday.
Well, no, the thing that's interesting to me is the innings and the pitches they have them going is very different than last year. And so I'm going to give you an example. So Connolly Early so far this year has his high in innings is 4 innings. Mm-hmm. He's thrown 62, 66, 43, and then 66 pitches in his 4 outings. Hunter Dobbins last year, I would say similar, like, he started the year in the Portland rotation. Here are his pitches: 82, 66, but 6 innings, 98 in 6 innings, 76 in 5 innings. Those were his first 4 starts. They really have scaled back the pitch numbers. And Yordani Monegro, I saw today, was the exact same thing. I think he was 65 pitches or something around. Mm-hmm. It was under 70 pitches again. And they basically have their starters going like 4 innings and 70 pitches, where last year it was, as I said, Dobbins had almost 100 pitch outing in Double-A last year in April. So I don't know what to make of it, but it's just very interesting to me that they seem to be really tailing back starters' workloads early in the season in the high minors.
Yeah, and never mind the high minors and the low minors for the first 3 weeks in Salem for the first week or so of the year. They had a 6-man rotation and they weren't even doing a skip. So guys were pitching once a week on like, this guy is the Wednesday starter. Like, and even in the bullpen, like Matt McShane was throwing on, I think, like Wednesday and Sunday. Joe Vogatsky was pitching on Thursday and Sunday, or like it may be slightly off, but like, everyone had, there were like a couple of guys, Nicholas De La Cruz, and, when he was healthy, Nathaniel Cruz, who like were the floaters. But it was very interesting the way, like, just how structured it was. I'm interested to see if it carries through into the year.
Well,
but like,
but so the reason that the innings thing interests me though is like you look at Hayden Mullins in Greenville, he's gone 4 to 5 innings in all his starts. He's gotten up to 80 pitches and had 3 outings at 74 or more. So it just seems like it's a double A thing. You know what I mean? Like they didn't do it with the guys, at least with Mullins and Greenville.
I mean, I guess Valera went 74 in his first outing. It could also just be that they have Mullins on, or not Mullins. They have like, so who are you talking about early?
Like early and
it might just
Monegro.
be a very specific build-up plan. Like, I mean, so for what it's worth, early in his second outing, it was piggybacking Giolito. But
Yeah.
I guess they didn't need to, like they. So what the other thing is too is they just had 2 rainouts. Yeah, it's strange. I mean, you look at early, like they're letting like Sandlin go 78, 75, 75, 80.
And
It's just an
Monegro,
early thing.
Monegro, 47, 55, 60, and then 69 today.
That might just be a build-up thing. And I wonder how many of these games are just like, it's 45 degrees. We're not going to push this.
But I just think it's just interesting to me because Dobbins last year, as I said, 82, 66, 98, 76, 80.
Yeah,
like,
no one's going that deep. I mean, I'm kind of surprised.
Yeah.
Like Tyler Uberstein went 87 in his second start. That might be the highest for a Greenville pitcher so far. And
no,
then
Salem.
Sandlin
Portland
went.
pitcher. Portland pitcher, you mean?
Oh, what did I say?
You said Greenville.
Sorry, Portland. Yeah, as Sandlin went 80 on last Friday.
So I guess it's just those 2 pitchers.
Yeah, maybe.
But it's just interesting.
Yeah,
to
Wee
me
Hunt's
that,
gone 81, 77, 79. That's going backwards.
So maybe it's just them,
early in Monegro.
those 2. But I just think that could be something that maybe holds early back too. Is they're not. I don't know if they want to promote him if he's only throwing 4 innings.
On April 20th, early followed Giolito and he pitched the last 3 innings. So like he could have gone more, but couldn't.
Yeah. Well, no, I wasn't thinking about that one, but I just think it was interesting that. It was 66 today and then 66. Like he had 2 66s basically.
Well, I think the one yesterday, you said he struggled. Like maybe they just. Yeah,
I mean, he had a quick.
You know what the other thing is too is he had also gone. What was it? 2, 4, 6, 8 days between starts.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's weird. I think I think the weather issue in Portland has kind of thrown the pitching into disarray a little bit.
Why I don't get why MLB doesn't take my genius idea of the early season schedule and do this.
You are the only person to have suggested not to play games in the Northeast early in the year.
Yes, but I actually proposed an alternative to it, which was creative and very smart financially for both parties. I think
specifically, what was that?
That they should have the Double A teams in the Northeast open at their High A affiliates down south. So the Red Sox would play Greenville, for example, and have Greenville start on the road for the first couple weeks. And then in the summer, when Portland's on a road trip, you have Greenville play a couple games or a couple series up in Portland. That way, everyone, like no one loses a home week of revenue.
Could work.
And if you're like the Red Sox or, you're an MLB team, you would get some exposure for your High A guys of what it tastes like Double A life is like for a week or 2. So good experience there also. I think it's a win-win all around. And then we don't have to deal with the situation where Portland's had like 12 games rained out already. I don't think it's 12. I think it's like 8, but
it's 4.
It's more than 4.
It's 4.
4 home games, right?
Yeah, none on the road. They only opened on the 4th. So they played all 3 of those games. They played 4 of 6 the second week, all 6 the third week, 4 of 6 the fourth week. This is week 5.
So they just don't play weekends at home, basically.
Yeah. So they lost the 4 weekend games at home.
But anyway, I just think it makes a lot of sense.
Worcester has lost a decent number of games too. Worcester has lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just think there has to be a more creative way than just having like, and also let's be honest, like playing up in Portland right now when the weather is not like it's been the last week is miserable. Like I went up there for a couple homestands ago, or maybe like a homestand ago, and it was like 28 degrees. Like there's just playing in that is pointless. Like there's no way to like evaluate guys, or I don't even know if it's good for development, frankly.
No.
But that's a different story.
Man, it's funny. Like I have my like color coded spreadsheet, and I'm looking at Worcester's pitching staff right now, and it looks like a rainbow dyed because of just the amount of moving guys around they've had to do with the major.
Well,
league
maybe
crew.
the other alternative that I just thought of is I think this would only work with you can do this at AAA is pushing the start of the season back for those levels too. Because like right now, let's be honest, it's nicer in September and October than it is in April and May.
Yeah, but they need these guys to be ready if they're needed in the majors.
Well, that's why I said
unless you're going to push the major leagues back.
Well, no, that's why I said you don't do it with AAA.
Oh, I thought you said do it with those levels.
No.
Sorry.
Only it would be AA and below is push them, have them start like mid-April or end of April.
Because they finish early. So rather than have them finish early, have them start
exactly.
late.
So push them back 3 weeks, have them finish the same time as the MLB regular season, and
extra
just
week
have them
of
start
spring
later.
training. No one would complain about. I'm sure the teams would love it.
I don't know. I just feel like there's a better solution than throwing these guys out there when it's 35 degrees up in the Northeast, and you're gonna have a couple games. Your schedules are gonna get severely disrupted, causing situations like what you said with Early, where he goes like 9 days between pitching. Like that's not good for anyone, in my opinion. But anyway,
no, it's not. Fair enough. But anyway, so we should talk about the guys that actually got promoted. So I mentioned Hayden Mullins. Going from Greenville to Portland, great start to the year for him. There's basically a 3-way race that I have to look at again tonight for pitcher of the month for us at Sox Prospects between Mullins, Clarke, and Early. Although Early probably lost it yesterday with his outing, so it's probably between Mullins.
I don't think it's a 3-way. I think it's there's only one person who's going to win it. I'm looking at all. I mean, well,
Clarke also dealt tonight, so he probably
Clarke's going to win it.
Yeah, it's going to be Clarke. But it depended on everyone's last start because Mullins could have started either last night or tonight, but he's starting tomorrow. So he with another really great start, he could have been in the conversation. But at any rate, Hayden Mullins, great start to the year in Greenville, did what he was supposed to do, going back to a level he probably shouldn't have been at. Really, really great start to the season for him. A guy that we've talked about, Ian, fastball, is very effective. And I guess I'll just let you cook on. You've seen Mullins more obviously than I have. What are we seeing out of Mullins so far this year, and what do you think about him moving up to Portland and how that challenge will be for him?
Well, I haven't seen him this year because obviously
he's
down in Greenville. But I mean, I saw him a couple times in spring. It's a very similar profile. It's a very good fastball, even though the velocity isn't really jump off the page. It's like, 93, 94, but he just gets crazy extension, and it's just a very deceptive pitch with a really high whiff rate. Got a couple good secondary pitches, and they're still continuing to develop him as a starter. You can see why when he's doing things like, 17 innings so far this year, 27 strikeouts, 3 walks. Have some concerns about he's not the biggest guy, has had obviously Tommy John in the past. So there's definitely some durability concerns. I think he probably ends up in the bullpen long term, but it's good to see him pushed up because he wasn't really being challenged by Greenville anymore.
And that AA rotation now is Sandlin, Early, Monegro, Mullins, Wehunt, Uberstein, and I guess Caleb Bolden at least this week. That's a dang good AA rotation compared to past seasons. I think that's really, there's no that's kind of all killer, no filler. There's no one there that I'm not interested in.
It was like that last year at one point.
Ranked.
No, Caleb Bolden's not, but
other than Bolden, I'm sorry. But
yeah.
the 6 starters are all.
Yeah. It was like that at one point last year too, though, because it had Angel Bastardo, Luis Perales, Dobbins. Who else was in that rotation that I'm forgetting? Sandlin.
Probably Sandlin.
Sandlin, and then there was
maybe.
some.
Although Early probably didn't get promoted until after.
Because this was early in the season, because it was pre-Bastardo and Perales injuries. It wasn't Mullins, because this was pre.
Not Mullins. I meant Dobbins. I always in my head get them crossed up.
Said Dobbins already. But yeah, I think it was those 5. I can't remember who the 6th was, but that was the only one I could think of that was comparable recently.
Yeah, I'm gonna try.
Oh, Isaac Coffey was the 6th guy.
Who we keep forgetting about because he's gonna come back sometime soon in theory.
But yeah, he was the 6th guy who, I mean, the numbers were very good again last year, even though there's still definitely some questions about the profile.
Penrod was there too at some point. Penrod started the year in the Portland rotation last year.
Yep.
Their starting rotation. Oh, and Wickelman.
Yeah, so it was very good.
Yeah. And Helcris Olivares. So long and farewell. Also moving up, and this guy is going to be an interesting discussion for our rankings update at the end of the month. Ian, is Brandon Clarke, who went to Salem, which I think we agree a level he was much better than.
Well, that's why I don't think there is that much of a discussion to me.
Yeah, I am inclined to agree.
He did what I would have hoped he did.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
Like he had no business being in. Like we've talked about it a lot. Low A is terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was. You have a college guy. I guess he was a JUCO guy, but still, you have a 22-year-old throwing who can throw like 102,
mm-hmm.
like or throw 100. Excuse me, not 102.
No, I was gonna say
he can throw 100 and has like good feel. Has
mm-hmm.
definitely improved his feel for his breaking balls. Like that guy's gonna eat at that level, and that's exactly what he did. And he ate again tonight in his debut in Greenville too.
Yeah, what was it? 4 2/3, 7 Ks,
7 Ks, 1 hit.
Yeah.
No walks, I think.
Yeah, I bet he's probably in Portland by the end of the year.
I wouldn't be surprised if he's in Portland by like if he continues to throw strikes consistently. There's no point in having a guy with that stuff in the low minors. It's just he's not going to be challenged if
it's just a matter of innings. Like they're going to at that point you need
he needs to build up, and if he can show that he can land a breaking ball, especially the slider and the sweeper for strikes, which he has done so far, you got to get him up to the high minors, in my opinion, like by July 1st, because there's just no point in a guy like that leaving him down there. He's not going to learn a lot down at that level with that kind of stuff.
Agreed. Also moving up, and this is the one you were referring to, Ian, Franklin Arias, who started the year in Salem. A little bit surprising, not necessarily in the sense that it wasn't a level he should be at necessarily, Ian, but more in that he easily could have started in Greenville based on what we saw.
He was very good in spring training.
And just with you contrast that with them pushing Nazan Zanatello up to Greenville. I don't know. It's interesting. It's nice that Zanatello has pulled out of his he was 0 for 18 with 14 strikeouts at one point or something, and he's pulled out of that at least. But just the comparison, it just seemed like Arias was the most ready for that level, and he showed it. I mean, he went down to Salem, and let's see, I've got the numbers right here in theory. Yeah, at 346, 407, 397, which might include his first Greenville game last night. I'm pretty sure it does. But I mean, he's getting on base at a 400 clip, hitting 346. Not a whole lot at the plate that he's learning down in Salem. Not a whole lot of power, but I wouldn't expect him to show much power in the Carolina League. It just made sense for him to move up. And they pulled the trigger on that early in the year. They saw the same thing we were all seeing, that he belonged in Greenville. And at the end of the world that he spent, 3.5 weeks in Salem, but he moves up to Greenville. Any thoughts on the number 5 prospect in the system in our rankings moving up to Greenville, Ian?
No, I mean, he's looked good. He's doing what he does. He makes a ton of contact. He's a good defender.
Mm-hmm.
I think the impact is still a long-term question, and why. What's keeping me from going all in? I think this is a guy who definitely has a very clear pathway to becoming a major leaguer. It's just I'm not sure how much upside there's going to be with the bat, and I think that's the question. Is he a guy who can hit 280 with 15 to 20 home runs, or is he going to be more a guy who settles in at around 280 with 5 to 10? And it's a pretty big difference there if he's the 5 to 10 type versus the other one. So just a question about just the long-term impact potential. It'd be interesting, as I said, once we get kind of a big enough sample to look at some of the EV data, see how that's compared to last year, because he definitely looks stronger in spring, even if the extra base hits aren't translating yet. But definitely a welcome promotion, and I'm excited to see what he can do at Greenville.
And look, he's 19 all year.
And this is something that someone was complaining to me on Twitter about Juan Valera, basically saying that he hasn't been good this year. My response to that was, first off, he had one bad start. Second off, he's 18 and he's in Greenville, and he's striking out more than a batter per inning, and he has 6 walks. So he's actually not walking very many guys. if you told me that he would have 18 to 6 strikeout to walk ratio in 16 innings in Greenville, I would be very happy with that outcome so far. Yes, I know he's given up 21 hits, but like, as I said, the majority of it was one start. I'm pretty sure it was an Asheville start, I believe. Let me double check that.
Yeah, maybe.
He had a bad start in Asheville. I'm almost positive. Like Peyton Tolley is another one who fell into that. Like getting Asheville early on in the season is definitely a thing that's going to happen.
Tough luck.
No, he did not get Asheville. He played. It was against Winston-Salem. But like, there's just a lot of factors, especially with pitchers, can go into early in the season. Like skewing, one bad outing can kind of just destroy your stats. So I would just be patient with these guys. But it was, as going back to Arias, it was very nice to see him get off to a good start and get up there. And now it does. Actually, it is.
The Winston-Salem start was at home, actually, too.
Yeah, no, I know. That's what I said.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, which is a hitter's park, but. Look, he's given up 21 hits, 17 of them were in his last 2 starts. His first 2 starts were fine. Like, if he goes up and down, it means he's at a good level because he's getting challenged.
Yeah, and this is the thing, it's command is the issue. So, like, if he's not locating, those hitters are going to hit the ball. Like, he's going to give up hits. So that's all fixable stuff. But anyway, I think that it just the biggest takeaway for me from this is just Greenville is now by far the most interesting team in the organization. I think top to bottom. Obviously, Worcester has the high end guys.
We're just talking hitters, or are we just talking?
No, I'm talking overall. Yeah, everyone. Just overall, there's a lot of interesting guys. I think at Greenville, way more than at any other level.
Yeah, if you're not going to take the Anthony Meyer star quotient as factoring in, because it's like, look, if you're picking one team to go see. It still might be Worcester just because of those two.
No, it's definitely Worcester, but like
but if you're looking for who's got the best like 5th starter and number 8 hitter, it's Greenville.
If it's the team that I like for our purposes, and I think people in our realm, if you want to see a team that's loaded with like that has depth, that's the one to go see because pretty much every starter is worth seeing. Including like someone like Eduardo Rivera, who is, I think, I don't know what they're doing with their rotation. You track the stuff better than I do.
It's weird, and they're doing this at Salem too, because it's basically at both levels.
It's a bunch of piggyback guys.
They have and it's even more so in Salem, where Salem has 10 guys who now with the even after moving Clarke up, they backfilled with Ben Hansen, who. It's really too bad because the projected FCL Red Sox club now has 37 guys on it. Of the 37 guys, 34 of them were international free agents. 3 of them were drafted, 2 of them out of high school. All 3 of them out of high school. 2 out of high school and 1 was a JUCO, D'Angelo Ortiz. While Hansen was there, he was a 4th drafted guy and he was 23, and I'm sure he was probably like 4 years older than everyone else there, which would have been fun. But Hansen backfell. So they've got basically 10 guys that they're getting length from in terms of the number of innings. And there's just no consistent rotation because they're mixing and matching guys in and out. Guy piggybacks one day, he's starting the next week. Guy starts one week, he's piggybacking the next week on like 5 days rest or 6 days rest when it would be 5. Like I have no feel for what the rotation is going to be on a given week in Salem. Greenville, it's a little more predictable. But yeah, even in Greenville, they're like switching guys in. Like I think Dalton Rogers was piggybacking Peyton Tolley, and he's going to be in the rotation. He's going to start Saturday, I think. And they're pushing like Danny Kerwin back into a piggyback role, presumably. So it's very confusing.
But you look at like Greenville, Eduardo Rivera this year, 8 innings, 4 hits, 16 strikeouts, 2 walks. Jeremy Wu Yellen, even like in the bullpen, someone who
Yellen's had a
pretty good
year
in spring training. I know there's some scouts who like him, but then you hear about the injury history, the inconsistency with the delivery, leading to pretty big control issues. And so far, he's throwing ish strikes. 8 2/3 innings, 17 strikeouts. That does have 5 walks, but he's missing a ton of bats. Like it's something that really stood out, and this is a little bit of a tangent, but I don't. It's I didn't even mention Max Carlson, 23 strikeouts, 1 walk in 15 innings.
Yeah, he's been great in a true piggyback role too. He's not throwing a reliever set of outings either.
That shows the depth of that level, but strikeouts seem way up across like a lot of the affiliates with the Red Sox this year. because I was looking like tonight at Portland, seeing like Connolly Early is running almost like, or prior to his last start was running almost a 50% strikeout rate. Yordan Monegro is the same thing. Like there's just a lot more strikeouts in the game right now, and I don't know if I've necessarily adjusted like what is a good strikeout rate
Sure.
to like account for that.
Like,
When
is a
you're seeing
strikeout
guys,
inning even good anymore?
right,
Basically.
that's what I mean basically. Because like a lot of guys you got a lot of guys doing like 2 strikeouts in an inning now, even as a starter, which is kind of just crazy. So I don't know. That was a little bit of a tangent. But
Yeah, I
we can
mean,
get
so
back
not including tonight's. I mean, just to throw some numbers on this, not including tonight's games. I've got K per nine handy because that's just what I've got here on the site. The Red Sox have. Let's do a minimum of like.
do a
Let's do
minimum
minimum
like
of
5
10
innings or
innings.
something.
Let's
Well, it's
call
going to
it.
cut out a lot of that's going to cut out all the relievers though.
All right, so we want to call it what, 7?
Just do 5 or 6. Yeah, I don't know.
All right, let's do 5, minimum 5 innings, because that's going to get rid of like Hobie Harris and Zach Fogel because they have very small sample sizes. And Austin Adams. Okay, so minimum 5 innings. The Red Sox have 2, 4, 6, 7 guys averaging more than 15 strikeouts per 9. 8, 10, 12, 13, 16, 16 guys at 13.
Like think about that at
18,
13.
20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32. 33 pitchers are averaging at least 10 strikeouts per 9 on the year, minimum 5 innings pitched. And they're all
So
guys that are throwing
how many was it?
I think what I say 33 or 31. It might be 31.
What I was just going to say though is I'm looking at the MLB leaders last year. The MLB leader in strikeouts per 9 last year was Chris Sale at 11.4. There were 10 guys above 10.
There are 24 guys above 11.4.
That's I think there might be a strikeout problem in the minor leagues right now.
Yeah. I mean, but here's the other thing too: is a lot of those guys are walking a ton of people. Like, I mean, just going down the list, like, I'm seeing for walks per 9, 8.4, 9.39, 6.75. Joe Vogatsky's over 5, Alex Hoppy's over 6, Eric Rivera's over 8. Giovanni Cruz is over 6. Like,
and you'd also think a lot of this could be just like you think it will level out as the weather gets warmer.
For sure,
it becomes easier to hit. But I just it was just something that was noticeable to me. It's just I feel like I'm seeing way more strikeouts with the pitchers, and then like even like looking at because Mikey Romero, who we'll talk about in a little bit, someone who I've seen has had some couple of really good games in a row. Was looking at his stats, and he's striking out at like I want to say it's like a 38% clip or something. Excuse me, 32%.
Well, I'm looking at last year, Ian, and it's comparable for April.
Oh, just for April?
Just for April. It is comparable. It's not as many at the high end. Like the leader at that point, it was Cam Boozer, who had 16, just under 17 strikeouts per 9. There were only 4 guys at 15.
So there's a lot more at the high end.
There's a lot more at the high end, but they were like the entire first page of last year. Actually, there are a lot more guys over 10 last year, believe it or not.
It's just the high end, maybe. But that makes sense with the high end.
But the high end is
that's kind of what I was thinking was like the high end guys.
Yeah, there's more guys in the like 13 and above range, but there are fewer.
That's the range
10.
I was thinking. Yeah, that's the number I was thinking. It's like 13, 14, 15 or higher. But yeah,
good to put that context on it. So yeah, strikeouts are a thing right now. We'll see if that holds up as the year goes on. And we talked about the 3 biggest promotions. Connolly Early, as I mentioned, I thought would probably go up, but again, they've got the issue this week with needing arms. He has some work to do, as you mentioned, and maybe that's a good tangent into guys that we've seen. And maybe we'll start with you in Portland. You saw Connolly Early on Tuesday. Let's maybe start with him. What do you have to report back from Early's outing? For what it's worth, he only went 3 innings, struggled a little bit. Clearly his worst start of the year. What were your thoughts on Early from his outing that you caught up in Manch Vegas?
So it didn't really change how I view him. I still think he's a very good pitching prospect.
Yes.
I think he's, someone who I still might even be moving up like a spot or two in the next. I haven't done my rankings for the next month, but I can see him moving up a
I'm
spot or
thinking
two.
so as well. Yep.
And I think it goes back to something that actually second Fenway rundown reference of the day, but they had Brian Abraham on recently. He had a comment. I can't remember who they were talking about, but Brian had a comment to Chris and Sean about basically that with pitchers, like it can be a little deceiving because the goal isn't winning games, it's development. And watching him pitch, and that was something I really felt because some of the sequencing and some of the stuff he was doing, just it did not make any sense to me when you look at it. If you're thinking about what is the best possible pitch in this scenario, like he was just throwing a ton of sliders, and when he just didn't have that pitch at all, like he couldn't throw it in the zone. I think he only threw a couple for strikes the entire outing. And it was something that he had a ton of issues with it. And yet in the second inning, which was when he ran into the majority of the trouble, I think he threw like 34 pitches or something in the second inning. It was his most used pitch. And so it was something like, when his changeup, which is his best pitch, was, I believe, his third most often pitch or third most used pitch. Like that tells me that they're working on things. So I have it right here. So in the first inning, he threw 12 pitches, like Cruz, very, very simple, quick first inning. He threw 2 fastballs, 7 sliders, and 3 changeups. Second inning was 34 pitches. He threw 16 fastballs and 14 sliders, only 4 changeups. Early's changeup is a pitch I've seen him triple up on. Like when he's struggling, if he's behind in the count, he'll often go to it. He just wasn't throwing it. It was pretty much all sliders. Like that to me, I don't know this for sure, obviously, but to me, it just seemed like that was a developmental thing. They had an outing where he was working on his secondary stuff. And then in his last inning, this is where it's funny, in his third inning, so he's coming off a 34 pitch inning, 20 pitch inning, 6 fastballs, 1 slider, 8 changeups, 5 curveballes. Like,
so he's kind of letting it out a little bit at that point, maybe.
That just the patterns just did not make a ton of sense. Like he didn't throw a single curveball in the first 2 innings, and he threw 5 in the third inning. He threw a slider 21 times in the first 2 innings, threw it once in the third. Like it was just some weird usage, and so I think that contributed to the kind of the rough outing with some of that. But the stuff was good. He was 93 to 96 or 93 to 95, touch 96, which is it's not the 90s. He didn't hit 97, but still, he's holding that mid 90s velo, or he's sitting mid 90s for 3 innings, getting up to 96, which is what you want to see. The slider was like 84 to 87. Changeup was 81 to 84. Still a very good pitch. And then the interesting thing to me was in spring, I believe he was throwing like a sweepy breaking ball. And in this outing, it looked more like a true curveball, which is what it was last year. So I'm not really sure what's going on with that. It was 77 to 81, which is very similar to what we have with the curveball at 77 to 80. The sweeper, which he threw in spring training, was 80 to 83, but I think he threw maybe 1 at that range that I thought might have just been a bad slider because I'm pretty sure it was in the dirt. So I don't know if he's scrapped the sweeper to go back to the true curveball or, that would make sense to me given the slider and the sweeper, the shape was kind of similar and they did run into each other a little bit. But just something I'm going to be watching when I see him again, next week or whenever that is.
Not to interrupt, but it's funny you mentioned with the usage. Like, so I saw Blake Aida with Salem, who was easily the best pitcher I saw in the 3-game set. And he had a very similar thing where he was not throwing a ton of sweepers until his 5th inning when he came out and he threw, first batter, sweeper, cutter, sweeper, cutter. Second batter, probably a cutter, sweeper. So he comes out and he's just clearly airing it out in his last inning. And then the last batter, he threw 4 straight fastballs. So, I think these guys, they do have usage goals in an outing to throw a pitch a certain number of times. And so that's why you'll get an outing like you saw with Early.
And that's what I'm saying. It can lead to like struggles because if like Early was throwing his changeup, right? I'm sure he would have been fine that outing. But if he's going to be throwing, majority fastball slider, those are not as good as his changeup. So that can kind of, you especially too, and you notice it most when it runs into a situation like you've got like an 0-2 count, you've just thrown a fastball up. This is a perfect like changeup down count. And you're throwing like a slider, and then you throw it 2 more times after missing the zone on both of them, and it's like. This is clearly like developmental. The goal here is not necessarily to win games. So that's why, the lines can be deceiving. But I thought overall, like the concept of what he is as a player and like the raw tools are definitely there. So and he's a very intriguing starting pitching prospect.
It's a different way to do something they've done before. Like I can remember Brandon Workman after he was drafted, they had him like not use his cutter because it was too good. And then like basically he hadn't thrown it in a year and a half. So it wasn't as good anymore. Like so
I
it's a
thought that was
better
Mike
way.
Schwarn had the same issue.
That sounds familiar, actually. He probably did.
I can't
That
remember
sounds
which
very
pitch it was,
familiar.
but I remember that being a
Yeah.
thing with him.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's like, stopping a guy from throwing a pitch seems a little ill-advised as opposed to like, okay, let's de-emphasize that, and have you work on throwing pitches you're not as comfortable throwing to get that muscle memory, get you used to using it. So,
Well, especially because
um,
like as I said in like the 34 pitch inning, like
mhm.
here's a two batter sample. Like slider, curveball, fastball. I believe that says curveball. Then slider, fastball. Like there's just oh no, wait, that's sorry, that was the wrong one. I'm one column over. Excuse me. Changeup, slider, fastball, slider, fastball, like slider. Like
Mhm.
just little things like that, just you didn't normally see from him, or you wouldn't
Sure.
see like that sequencing. So yeah, especially too when it was most of when he's facing right-handed hitters and he's not going to the changeup. That's the biggest indicator to me that
Sure.
it's what they're working on because
Um,
that's a devastating pitch against righties. So, but
mhm.
overall, yeah, still a very good pitching prospect.
What other starting pitching did you see in Portland? Who else kind of
Well,
stands out?
I mean, I'll just go through that game pretty
Sure.
quickly. The relievers I saw were Chris Troy, White Olds, and Yorvani Cruz. Troy was 92 to 94. Velo's just
Mhm.
not come back like it was in the spring training last year. Throwing like a cut slider thing at 88 to 90, and then a curveball at 80 to 83. Curveball was good. Slider wasn't as good. Pitches backwards though. He's like, throwing off his secondary stuff. Um, so he's interesting. The velo when it was 95 to 97, that's a pretty big difference to when you're pitching at 92 to 94, which he is right now. And just got to throw more strikes too. But 11 strikeouts in 6 2/3 innings is you like that. Wide Olds was 95 to 96, slider 85 87, changeup 90 91. Pretty similar like what we've seen from him for a couple of years now. And then Yorvani Cruz is somewhat interesting, just in the sense that it's really good stuff. He's got 12 strikeouts in 9 innings. He only given up 3 hits, no runs, but he also has 6 walks. And it's just if he can, he's got to throw strikes because if he can, like he's 98 to 99 with his slider was very good in this outing. He got like I think 2 4 6 swing and misses with his slider, or five maybe, but he's 80 87 to 90. Really in pretty good shape. Was able to like back foot a few of them to lefties, which was nice. And then he had change up at 87 to 91. So he's someone I'm keeping my eye on. If he can continue, he shows that he can continue to throw strikes.
Yeah.
The other big starter I saw was Yordano Monegro. He was today 3 2/3 innings, 5 hits, 1 run. He struck. It was a home run. A very bad slider that he was just a cement mixer that he just left up in the zone. But he struck out 7 with no walks. He was kind of pretty similar to what I've seen from him in the past. 94 to 96 with the fastball, so good velo, but poor utility, really inconsistent strikes. Just he's a thrower. He doesn't really have any idea where it's going. The fastball, the command is a major work in progress still. And then slider 86 to 89 was the pitch he threw the most. Curveball 77 to 81. Both those were good. Like missed a ton of bats. Some devastating ones. Some other, couple he left a couple sliders up that got hit hard. Had a couple spiked, a couple curveballs, but overall, like those are his best 2 pitches by far.
Yeah.
And the changeup was 86 to 91, pretty inconsistent. He would throw like 150 and then a couple 30s in a row.
Hmm.
He telegraphs it a little bit. He threw the 86 one was good. Was like the best one. It's better at 86 to 88 than it is at 88 to 91. 90 to 91, it just looks like a two-seam fastball. So I think with him, it's he's going to strike out a ton of guys because he has good feel for spin, but he's very reliant on hitters expanding the zone. He's still not able to consistently land strikes or throw quality strikes, and so if he's not getting chases, which is be the concern against more advanced hitters, then could run into some trouble, especially when you don't really have a fastball or changeup that you can rely on, and everything's just kind of moving east west.
Mhm.
So there's definitely a major league quality pitcher, and he's going to miss a lot of bats. But I'm not sold on him as a starter long term because I just don't see the fastball utility at this point for him to be able to consistently, go 5-6 innings.
Yeah, there just aren't a lot of major league pitchers who throw backwards like he does. Like he really pitches off of those breaking balls.
Yeah,
And it's just the profiles. Whereas with like a reliever, like,
that's fine. I don't care.
yeah, go for it. Throw, 70% breaking balls. Like if you get outs, who cares? Whereas turning a lineup over, that's not quite as effective against major league hitters.
Especially
Um,
too against lefties without a changeup. That's a pretty big platoon split concern, as we've seen with someone like Tanner Houck. You need that third pitch to consistently get left.
for sure. I'm trying to think who came in after him today.
It was a 7 inning game, so only Senna did. Well, Zach Bryan got one batter, but
Oh, right. That's right. Yeah. Because Senna couldn't finish it.
Senna was same 94 to 96, had some flashes. He's very difficult to hit because it's a really off-putting delivery, but just the strikes throwing is very questionable. I think he had 8 walks and coming into this game, and had a couple, I believe, in this one. But yeah, I mean, the stuff is good. He's very small, but the stuff is legit. It's just I'm just not sure how many strikes he's going to throw in the end of the day.
Mhm. How about on the hitting side? One guy, let me ask you first about what your sample size is on Yosinks Garcia. I mean, what do we? He's had a great start to the year. Definitely some improvements from his sample at Double A last year. That's for sure. Not that that's honestly, not to make light of it, but not terribly difficult. But a nice little start for the year entering in these stats that I have up are after this past weekend. They don't have last night's games in them either. But 321, 439, 453 coming out of last weekend. Uh, you know, pretty good line for a guy who really kind of was fighting it a little bit at that level last year. Where are you on Garcia? How's he looking center? Did you see get much of him out there? What are you seeing from him so far?
He looks very good at the plate. I think the biggest thing is, and the walk rate right now, it's jumped. Last year was 7.2%. This year, I think not including tonight's games, it's 19.7%. That's a massive jump. And watching him, he's laying off a lot of the pitches that we had concerns about from last year. Like the quality of the bats just seems noticeably better. He's being a lot more patient. He's not expanding as much. This is in the, I think it's 4 games that I've seen from him now. I'm very interested to see what like the chase numbers and stuff look like when I get that. But to see if it backs up the eye test. But it just I think today there was a good example of that. He had a 9-pitch at bat that ended a single, and he fell behind 0-2, and then he spoiled a couple tough sliders or breaking balls down and away. Took a fastball up that was a good competitive pitch. Couple more foul balls on tough pitches. Took a slider down and away that was a pitch that he was chasing probably 95 out of 100 times last season, if you saw him. And then eventually he got a slider that caught enough of the plate that he was able to hook it up the middle for a single. And it's like it was just something that really, I know it was just a single, but like he was not putting together quality bats like that last year. So that was really encouraging. He had another walk today. I saw him walk twice yesterday, and these are like, he's not getting those. One of them was like the cheapy, nothing close walk, but a couple of them were like competitive walks where, it's, you're getting in a 2-2 count. You have a couple of good takes. You have spoil a couple pitches and you get on base. So
Sure.
Yeah, I've been impressed with his approach at the plate. The power's not really showing up yet, and I do wonder if maybe that was a change. Is hey, we're gonna have to sacrifice some power for contact ability to make more consistent. The BABIP is very high. Like we should say that it's 436 right now. So there's probably some normalization coming, or regression coming. Excuse me. But at the plate, I think he looks very good in that regard.
It's also Portland in April too, so part of that because he just needs to heat up to get to the power too, right? Yeah, yeah. I'll vamp while you cough, but yeah, I mean it's a good line. Well, you kind of watch it as the summer goes on, especially with these guys in April in Portland. It's just kind of like, okay, get through these early months, not looking like a disaster is generally kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, I mean, most of the games are just going to be freezing cold, and it's going to be really tough to hit.
Sure.
But defensively too, he looks good in center. He's got a good arm. Couple slow breaks coming in on the ball today, but I still like the speed. I like the defense. I think, I think there will be power eventually. And then question is going to be the hit tool, but I like some of the changes I've seen early on this season with him.
Mikey Romero's the other kind of headliner in the lineup. What were you seeing from him so far?
I've seen 2 home runs in 2 days.
Oh, there you go.
He's hitting the ball with authority to the pull side, which is a very encouraging thing. It's another thing that I know the Red Sox really value. Brian Abrams talked about it extensively, that they want guys to be able to pull the ball with authority. And both home runs I've seen were pulled. Yesterday was a fastball, yesterday was a fastball, like middle down that he just lined, just got over the wall. But New Hampshire's a good place to hit, so it was a home run. And today was just a 91 mile per hour fastball middle in, and he just destroyed it. And swing looks good. He's hitting the ball hard when I've seen him. I know the walk rate, he's getting on base a ton. The strikeout rate's elevated. It's 32% right now. But I think that's just an early season thing. I think it's going to end up settling. He's not going to be, I don't think he's going to end up ever being kind of like the 15 to 18% strikeout guy. I think a lot of us thought you were getting when you drafted, given his prowess with the hit tool. But I think he's going to end up with more power than a lot of people projected. So I think that might be a pretty good trade-off for him, to give a little contact and have a little more swing and miss, but be able to tap into a lot more power, because he's continuing what we saw in the spring. He's gotten stronger, and he's showing the ability to drive the ball for extra bases. He's up to like 6 extra base hits in 16 games, and that doesn't include today where he had a homer. And I think
it might be 7
today.
Because he had 5 going into this week. So whatever he did the last 2 days, add to that. So
he had a home run yesterday and a homer and a double today, so it's at least 8 then. 8. So I've been impressed with him. Just kind of continuation of what we saw in spring.
One more guy that I wanted to ask about, just because A, you brought him up in our chat, and B, he's been their best hitter and is hitting second in the lineup right now, is Abram Leendo, who always seemed to me to be a speed and defense with no back guy. Gave up switch hitting, is now hitting right-handed exclusively, I believe. Ditched hitting left-handed.
Correct.
And was hitting entering the week 347, 385 with a 510 slug, which I'm sure is in part goosed by his speed. He's 7 for 7 on stolen base attempts in 13 games, and that was entering the week at least. Is there there? Is this a guy that we might want to be ranking when we do our update for May, or is it this just kind of a wait and see if it actually holds up type?
More the latter, probably for me. He's running a 500 BABIP right now. I'm just going to guess that's not sustainable.
Yeah, I mean, if you look historically, speedy guys always do have higher averages on balls in play, but his tends to hover between like
his career high is 333.
340. Yeah,
his career high is 333.
So that's probably coming out. That said, the isolated power is light years ahead of where it usually is. So
yeah, I mean,
has he fixed something? Who knows? But he's probably not a true talent 895 OPS guy.
No, I mean, he's hitting the ball hard. There's definitely some swing and miss still. Like he's still got some trouble picking up spin, it looks like. But I mean, it's definitely something I'm paying closer attention to than I expected going into the season, just because he is hitting the ball with way more authority than I've ever seen him before. And defensively, like he had an outstanding play today at third base. He's got a good arm. Like he can play, I think, pretty much all over the infield. So I'm not ready to talk about like a major league grade or anything with him yet, but he's definitely on the radar and pushing more towards like really good organizational player at a minimum, which I don't think coming into the year when you're talking about a guy whose career average is probably right around 200, that's you don't really expect that. But I think he looks a lot better at the plate than I ever remember, for sure. It's just the biggest issue with him is he's so small. He's 5'7" probably. So it's a tough profile.
I think a best case outcome for him is he gets that like Mike Miller 1 week call up at some point, because he can feel the position and they'll hit him.
I mean, you can tell they value him. Like he played a ton in Major League Spring Training this year.
They call up the guys that can field. Yeah,
I shouldn't have said I don't know if he played, but he was on the roster for a
lot.
No,
he played a decent amount.
Okay, he did play.
He absolutely did. He came up a lot, especially given his like prospect standing, right? Like he was up a bunch because he can field the position. So, and he was a guy that they called up to Portland last year when the Portland lineup got pretty thin, especially after the trade deadline. Like he came up and was playing a ton because they're like, look, you can't hit at this level, but like you're not going to cost us runs and make us, waste pitchers, pitches by making errors in the field. So They value guys like that organizationally, as everyone does. It's not a Red Sox thing.
Yeah. So he's someone who I will be going to have to update the scouting report on, which is not something I expect to have to say
Right.
getting in here. So
Right.
that's he definitely looks better.
Anyone else in Portland, or should we move on to Worcester? I think.
No, it's a
Yeah.
lineup struggling after that. A lot of guys
Mhm.
hitting under 200. I saw Blaze
Yeah.
Jordan. He did have 3 hits in one of the only game he played that I was there.
I
Which
mean,
was
he had 10
or
and
no,
16 games entering it. So
yeah, I guess why did they give him a third hit? I thought he only had 2 hits. I had a fielder's
Mhm.
choice on one of them. Maybe they. Oh, I had a. I can't even read my own notes. I said fielder's choice / first base question mark, and I was supposed to
Mhm.
cross out which one it wasn't. But yeah, Blaze is tough because he's gone off to a really slow start. I still like him at first base. I actually think he's made pretty substantial improvements there.
Mhm.
But it's just a lot of the same, quick at bats, getting out early. Sometimes it works out for him, sometimes it doesn't. A lot of swing and miss, especially against spin. So the swing is a little long. I don't know. It's a soft profile. We'll have to see if he can kind of get hot as the season goes on. But right now it's definitely been a slower start for him, even though there may be signs of life in that most recent outing where he had the
Mhm.
3 hits.
Mhm. Let's move on to Worcester, and I guess just to lead off with the obvious one, is there anything left to say about Roman Anthony or Marcelo Meyer that you want to throw out there, or are they just see prior episodes? They're both very good.
No, I think what we talked about in the last episode holds up. I think that one thing that probably should clarify is when we're talking about the service time thing, that's the Red Sox are never going to say that. They've never publicly said that. That's an us thing. Seemed to be some confusion about that. That was us speculating. But if there was an injury, I think either of them could be up right now. I
Yeah,
don't think
if there's an injury, is different than what we were saying. If there's an
but
injury, it means they need someone
without
versus
an injury, I just think that
calling a guy up
especially
for good. Yeah.
yeah, you're only calling them up if they're playing every day and you're calling them up for good. And I don't think there's a pathway for either of them right now.
Mhm.
And they're both good enough that you will eventually create a pathway, but I don't think that's something that's I don't know if we see it anytime soon. I think
Mhm.
I've especially with Rafael, it kind of he's doing the thing where he has a couple good games and a couple bad games. But if you look at the advanced stats, there's definitely some progress offensively. It's still not great. The chase rate's still terrible, but he's hitting the ball a little harder now. Strikeout rate is down a little bit. Granted, part of that's because he just gets himself out very early in at bats. But the expected slug, expected BA, things like that are up for him. And if he can be what he doesn't have to be a positive hitter. He just has to be not that bad, given his defense and speed. So with the signs of life he's showing at the plate, and with how good Abreu's been, how good Duran has been, you're not platooning either of them. I'm not sure there's a pathway for Roman right now, as good as he's playing. And he looks fantastic. He could be in the big leagues right now. Same with Marcelo. But I don't think it's the worst thing if you keep them in the AAA and they're there whenever you want to pull the trigger and make a big move to create a spot for them, or if an injury happens.
Mhm. And I think it merits mention on the Rafaela piece of it too. Like everyone just says, make him the Brock Holt super utility. Again, where do you play him? Brock Holt, the super utility, was one of 9 starters still. It's just a matter of where he was going to play. This is moving Rafaela to the bench. It is a very different thing. So I just still haven't seen the use case there.
Well, and the bigger issues though, and I think we kind of touched on it, is who are you taking off the roster?
Right.
Romy Gonzalez is your backup first baseman and is pretty much platooning with Triston Casas now.
He is literally. I mean, they pinch hit him in the middle of a game tonight. Yeah.
That's a different subject. Don't know how I feel about that, but
yeah. Well, but I'm just saying in terms of what they're doing, it's not
I agree.
It's not
I
right
agree.
or wrong. It's just that you're right. They are using them almost as a literal platoon right now.
And then Ralph Snyder's been one of your best hitters, and because he just destroys left-handed pitching.
Mm-hmm.
There's just one of those guys has to go, completely get DFA'd. They're both. I think actually Roman Gonzalez might have options, but
or you option David Hamilton, which is also just not a good use of the player.
Well, no, but if you do that, then is Rafael your backup shortstop, a position he hasn't taken? I don't know if he's taken a single rep there this season.
No,
you know what I mean?
Well, but I mean, they I don't think he took a single rep there in camp. I can double check that, but
that's my point. Is that so you comfortable with him being your backup shortstop then?
You'd have to be.
Because Roman Gonzalez, but I don't know if they are. So it just it's a weird position they're in right now where, I mean, either it's going to have to sort itself out through injury or through a trade. But yeah, that's kind of the update with those guys.
Rafaela did nothing but play center field in camp.
Yeah. So I don't know if you're comfortable making him your backup shortstop right now.
Or
So that
just
means
doing the
you
super
can't really
utility
option
thing.
Hamilton either.
They're so focused on letting him just play in center. Like, I don't think that's happening. Okay, so those guys are good. We knew that. Lineup wise, what else were you seeing there? Anything worth passing along? It's not as, they've had some injuries. There's some I guess Vaughn Grissom's the other guy worth talking about. I mean, is there something there at this point, or is this a wait and see after 100 plate appearances situation? Because entering the week, Grissom was 301, 381, 484, which nice little line. But is there a there? Is I guess the question.
With Grissom, it's tricky because a lot of his offensive production, what's carrying him right now is the week they had in Rochester, which frankly you can say about a lot of the guys in the lineup.
Yeah.
He was 12 for 29 in that series, and that park plays really small. And the pitching staff on that team is very bad. I believe they're also terrible. Let me check their record. I want to confirm that. But I believe they are one of the worst AAA teams record-wise. If they're not, I'm just gonna.
Well, and we've talked about that in past years. While you look that up, it's that with the week-long series, if you play in the span of 4 weeks, 2 teams that stink, your numbers
Rochester is 6-22 on the year, which is 3 fewer wins than any other team in the International League. And they have a minus 75 run differential. The next highest is minus 47.
Good grief. Okay.
They have given up 100. They have given up 179 runs this year.
Okay,
that's so bad. Mm-hmm. But anyway, yeah. So this is a team that you should beat up on. And if you like, Grissom had a really good series then. Since they got home after that series, he's 4 for 24. And this is the thing with me is when you see him, I'm not sure what he does that well that would translate to the major leagues. Like, he has some contact skills. I don't know how much power there is. Athleticism wise, it does not stand out really at all. He's playing some first base, he's playing some second base, he's playing some shortstop, he's playing some third base. I like that because he's going to have to be a versatile defender because I don't know if there's an everyday profile. But I think that if you're expecting him to come up and be like a key piece for the Red Sox this season, I don't see it really, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the numbers. I mean, the strikeout rate is, 21% is 22% is not terrible. The average on balls in play is high, not horribly high, but it's high. I mean, it was 310 last year. It's 373 so far. So he's going to see some regression. I just don't know that I see a true talent improvement off of last year. So
I think that it was just he had that really good week when they were playing, as we said, we just talked about, a very, very bad team. And I think kind of he's going to end up equalizing out to more what his true level is, which is I think he falls in that up and down camp. Like, he's probably slightly better than an org guy, but he's not a guy who you would want, operating in an everyday role for the Red Sox for sure, especially when they're a team that wants to be competitive. And then when you talk about a bench player, he's just not a good fit there because he's not fast. It's not like, he crushes lefties. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have big power, and defensively he can play a couple different spots, but he's not really a standout anywhere. So it's just a really rough profile.
It's I'm remembering there was a highlight of a home run that Meyer hit while Grissom was on base a week or 2 ago, and someone in the forum saw the video and was like, they thought it was Meyer running, but it was Grissom running. They're like, Meyer was running like he's hurt, and it's like, no, that's Grissom, and that's how he runs. Like,
no, that's how he's very stiff. There's just it's not a very fluid. He's not a fluid athlete. When he runs, it's like 30 speed probably, which is just weird for a middle infielder. So
it's a weird profile.
I just don't think with where the Red Sox want to be, but also it's more that with like a team with if you're talking about like a second division team, there's probably a pathway for him to get playing time there. With a team like the Red Sox, I just don't see any scenario in which he would come up because if Story got hurt or Campbell got hurt, I think they just call Meyer up. That's what I would do. And
no, I agree. You would add them to the roster. They've got room. Are they still at 39?
Yeah,
they're still at 39, and you can 60-day Crawford and Yoshida. So they've got like 3 open spots basically on the 40-man right now.
And then so I guess maybe the pathway would be like if David Hamilton got hurt. But in that situation, Grissom can't really play shortstop. So who's your backup shortstop? I don't know. I
No,
just
I don't. Yeah, I don't see a path to him being on the roster right now.
no, me
Like, because you
either.
would call up
So
Sogard because Sogard can play short.
exactly. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
yeah.
Ian, how about pitching at that level that you've seen? What does the Worcester pitching staff look like? Who have you seen out there? Anything interesting to report back? Obviously, you wouldn't have seen Dobbins because I don't think he's pitched in AAA in a while. I mean, we should probably mention Dobbins was supposed to start today and got pushed back because he might be needed in the majors this weekend. It's not clear what that's all about. But we can speculate. Who knows what they're worried about? I mean, Giolito went 6 tonight, so that was promising. Um,
He was. I mean, maybe we could start with him because I saw him pitch and
okay. Yeah, wasn't
very
great.
interesting. Well, no, he was not good in the minors, but that he came out today and he was solid. And I think the thing kind of going back to what we were talking about the development thing, he was a two pitch guy in the majors today. He threw basically all but everything was fastball or changeup.
Mhm.
And in AAA, he was throwing a ton of breaking balls and they were not good. Um, so I think that's a good example of what you're working on at rehab start might not necessarily translate to the major league level because you're just going to rely on what can get outs at the major league level because that's ultimately what matters there. So good reminder for me because I was very down on him after that start, and then he came out. He had a quality start today. Obviously ran into some trouble in the sixth, which I think you can kind of cherry or you can nitpick whether or not he should have came out for that sixth inning.
Mhm.
Gave up a couple home runs there. But yeah, he 4 2/3 innings, 3 walks, or excuse me, 6 walks, 4 strikeouts, 3 earned runs. Velo was like 91 and 94. Changeup was good. Best pitch 80 to 83. Then, but as I said, the breaking balls were both really rough, and then he just basically didn't use them today. So it's going to be tough to be a two pitch guy, but I think that that's probably the best path forward given the inconsistencies I saw with this breaking ball. As you said, I didn't see Dobbins. I haven't seen Jerohan yet either. He was scratched the day I was supposed to see him with a what was it,
Oh,
neck
that's
soreness,
right.
I believe.
Neck. Yeah, but
Yeah.
he's already back in the rotation for this week, so luckily not something that they expect to carry forward. I really want to hear from you seeing him in person because he's 18 and 2/3 innings, ERA below 1, 28 strikeouts to 8 walks, which is a little high. But OPS against under 500. He's just been very good to start the year, at least on the back of the baseball card numbers. So I'm very interested to see what the look is like.
Yeah. So I mean, without him, it's a lot of like more depth guys.
Sure, sure.
I saw Brian Mata, who
Yeah,
couldn't throw
tell me about Mata
strikes.
because Mata's 13 and a third innings, ERA just below 7, 21 strikeouts to 10 walks. So that might not include. Did he pitch? He pitched yesterday, I think. Maybe not. Maybe not. But anyway,
I
yeah.
can
Would you?
I can look. I have it up right here. He is what did you say for him for totals?
No, here I got it. He didn't pitch yesterday, so it would just be if he pitched today.
No, I don't know. I don't know if he pitched today, but 13 and a third innings. Yeah, as you said, 18 hits, 10 walks. He really struggled. Gave up a ton of base runners. I don't know if he got an out. I don't know the box score in front of me, but he might have got a couple outs, but it was a really rough outing. He's 98 to 100 though, like easy velo. Throwing changeup, slider, sweeper. Breaking balls were okay. He threw a couple good ones, but just kind of a lot of what we've seen from him, like just very inconsistent within outings, even from outing to outing. Um, Pretty bad body language, which stood out. Things weren't going his way, and he didn't look very. It just wasn't. He wasn't look. He looked like he was fighting it. It just wasn't there for him that day, and yeah, it was just a rough outing overall. I think it's kind of just more the same. Like the stuff can be really good at times, but there's just not enough consistency to project it for a quality major league arm going forward. I'd say like the best reliever I saw was Luis Guerrero, who's now up in the big leagues and pitching well.
Yeah,
He was
you
90.
you previewed having something to say about him last episode too.
Yeah, he was 97 to 99.
Okay, like that.
Which was good. Slider 85 to 87. He was throwing it. He ran into some trouble in his second inning. He had a really good first inning, and then he came back out for the second. And he had a couple. I think he had like a walk, a single, maybe a couple walks. But it was interesting because he was just throwing like basically all sweepers
Mhm.
and wasn't very good. And then he got up to the big leagues and he's not really throwing it that much. So I think
Yeah.
it was just a developmental thing where they wanted him to work on in the minors. Because I looked at his like game logs and it was something that had only really been incorporated the last like 4 or 5 outings. We
Well,
was
it's
throwing a lot
interesting.
more sweepers, and then
'Cause-
he didn't. Okay, go ahead.
No. I was just gonna say, if you look at his line, we're talking about all the strikeouts. He only had 7 and 10 and a third in Worcester,
Yeah, which
to
but
5
it
walks and 9 hits with 3 home runs allowed in 10 innings.
Yeah, but if you looked at, I went through all his game logs a couple weeks ago, or not a couple weeks ago, a couple days ago. He had a period where he missed. I want to say he didn't pitch for like a week. Does that sound right? Um,
Maybe I'll look it up.
he
You go
didn't he
ahead.
didn't pitch from the 9th till the 15th of April. And then he in his first outing back, or excuse me, in his second outing back, he gave up 5 runs. And that's basically where all of the damage on his stat line this year is, that one bad outing. But it was just interesting that all of a sudden in those couple of outings, those like 3 outings after this week-long gap or 6-day gap, he basically was throwing a lot more sweepers than he had in the previous ones. And it was something that then he gets up to the big leagues in his first outing against Cleveland. In the 2 innings, I think he threw like 1 or 2 of them. And he seems like he's maybe mixed in a couple more, but I think that was just they were working on that pitch, and that's might have been why he was down in the minors. Honestly, was to try and continue to develop his breaking ball,
Sure.
to find more consistency with it. But I liked what I saw. I'm glad he's up in the majors, and I hope he continues to take this opportunity because I think he's a really good arm. And as we saw tonight, the Red Sox bullpen still a work in progress.
For sure, 100%. I guess one last thing just to close the book on live looks. Like I said, I got 3 games seeing Salem. Ian, I don't know if there's anyone that you were curious about, but as we've talked about, a doubleheader in a single game look, position player wise, is really not going to tell you a whole lot. Franklin Arias was by far the best position player in that lineup. I kind of gave my thoughts on him last episode. Just seemed like he was always on base. But that said, I mean, of the 3 games I saw, the first game, the Salem team got 2 hit. Arias had one of the hits. He had a single, and Andrew Musette had a double, and that was it offensively in that outing. In that game, I did see Blake Aida start. He went 5 innings. I wound up missing the first inning because of the traffic on 95 South, which is just a hellish stretch of road. But Aida was 90 to 93, touching 94 with the fastball. Was also mixing in cutter, changeup, sweeper. The sweeper was kind of a, high 70s pitch, 78, 79, 80. Stadium gun was like a tick slow. So, add maybe 1 mile per hour to what I'm saying here. Cutter and changeup were both in kind of the same velo band, but kind of moving in opposite directions. They were like high 80s, 87, 88. 80, more 85 to 87 on that change, 87, 88 on the cutter. So it was a little faster. The sweeper looked really good. I mean, the sweeper's a great pitch, and that was the calling card when he was drafted. It's still the calling card now. Big break, gets swinging strikes with it. Really likes it. Is unafraid to throw it, unafraid to double or triple up on it. Really confident in the pitch. It did seem like, as I mentioned, he was working on a lot of his other pitches. He was good. I don't think he's a guy that we need to move from where we've got him right now. I think we've got him in what, the 30s, Ian, on the rankings, and that felt about right. Let me confirm that. He's 40 right now. I think that's probably about where he belongs. He's an interesting guy to keep an eye on. I think, he's in Salem to work on some things. He's a guy they probably could have challenged and pushed to Greenville, but I think he's fine in Salem for now, at least for half a season. So he'll be good to keep an eye on. Austin Ehrlicher finished that game with one inning in which he came in, faced 3 guys and got 3 strikeouts. Fastball was 91, 92, 93, touched 94. So I got the sweeper was like 81 through what looked like a cut. Sweeper was 81-ish. Cutter was like 85. Looked like he threw a couple changeups at 82. It was pretty good. I mean, it was a quick outing. It was the end of a game that, in a doubleheader, sometimes you just get those innings that just go by quick, but looked pretty good facing 3 right-handers, striking them all out. First one was a swinging strike on a fastball, looking strike. Second guy had a decent at bat. Third guy had a decent at bat. Those are both longer at bats with 3 ball counts in both. So Good outing from him. Otherwise, honestly, like I said, lineup wise, not a whole lot to report back. Guys like Musette and Salazar are interesting. Cespedes has a lot of power. He made one really nice play in the field at second base, charging on a ball. So there's tools there. But didn't really stand out as like a real guy. And I mean, at the time he had an OPS below 500, so he was fighting a little bit. Did see Starlin Nunez hit a home run. Kind of like him, interesting guy as a middle infielder. He's going to get a lot more run at shortstop now with Arias promoted. So I'm interested to see what happens with him. He's a guy that we identified in spring training last year as a potential guy to follow. And he's had a pretty good start to the year in Salem too. So someone to keep an eye on who's maybe not quite on the radar. Fraley Encarnacion's had a good start to the year, but repeating the level, again, didn't really stand out too much, honestly, from a 3-game look. Was kind of fine. All the outfielders were really kind of fighting it, it seemed. So none of them really stood out too terribly much. Starter wise, the other pitchers I saw, Griffin Calander, Trenner O'Donnell, and the starter on Sunday was Adam Bates, all kind of fringy stuff. Guys who, are going to be looking to kind of grow on that stuff and improve to really kind of get on my radar, but no one else who really stood out on the pitching wise. So, I guess a couple guys worth mentioning. Joe Vogatsky was kind of interesting. It's a funky arm angle. It's a true, low 3/4 arm angle, very violent delivery. At that level, just the delivery alone is probably going to help him have success against hitters. I'd be interested in seeing him move up to high A. Maybe not quite yet. Matt McShane, who's the other guy that the Red Sox got from the Pirates in trades this offseason. He's already been promoted. I don't even know if we mentioned him, but he got promoted to Greenville. I think that makes sense. Heard some good things from scouts who saw him potentially throwing a plus slider on his pitch, but again, on the slider. But again, I didn't see him. Vogatsky, like I said, interesting to me. I'm curious where that winds up going. So we'll see how he performs as the season goes on. Trying to think, anybody else seeing on the Salem roster that you were interested in hearing about that I got the live look at? That's basically it.
No, as we kind of talked about earlier, it's a pretty thin roster.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's as we talked about a lot, all the trades, all the depth they've traded, you gotta, it eventually was going to catch up on them. And I think that Salem team is kind of what we're seeing as a result of that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It would have been nice to have, Braden Montgomery just got promoted from low A to high A. I think for the White Sox, it would have been nice to have Braden Montgomery in this lineup. Although if he were in this system, you kind of wonder if
I would hope he wouldn't.
Greenville.
I mean, the White Sox did send him to low A actually, so maybe he would have, but I would
That's
hope
what I think it's
now.
Consider how long he went without playing last year. So it might have been just kind of almost like an extended spring training for him in low A. May have made some sense. So yeah, I mean, look, if they did it with Arias, they could have done it with Montgomery, but the DH thing. But at any rate, yeah, so that was Salem. Ian, shall we move on? I think as far as emails, I think we've only got the one this week that we're going to read here. Again, it's podcast at soxprospects.com. Hit us up. One note we got from Tim that I wanted to thank him for. If you were listening to last episode, he points out that someone mentioned a steel man in a tweet at Ian. He notes that steel manning refers to the practice of presenting an opponent's argument in its strongest possible form, often including points they may not have explicitly stated, but are logically implied. So y'all learned something on the podcast this week. So thanks, Tim, for that. I guess, the only other email I think we've got this week that we're going to hit up on this one is from Mike, who asks, he was listening to the discussion about catchers last week, and he said with hitting, where we mentioned hitting is not really a priority. And he says, if Jason Varitek were to be playing today and hit free agency in his prime, how much money do you think he would get? Looking at Baseball Reference, he posted multiple 800 plus OPS seasons and was a master behind the plate. Have to imagine minimum 20 million AAV. Ian, we looked at this a little bit before recording. Keep in mind it was a different offensive environment at that point. He had, I think, 4 seasons above like a 110 OPS plus on BREF. I think we think in his prime, if he becomes a free agent before the 2004 season, he probably gets maybe the 20 million, Ian. But, keeping in mind he would be over 30 at that point. He was a college guy. I think that's probably the cap of what he gets when he hits his prime.
I think the thing you have to remember too is that catchers just don't make that much money.
No.
Like if you look at the highest paid catcher. How many, try to guess how many are over 20 million?
I mean, is it even two?
It's two, exactly
It's two.
two. JT
Yeah.
Realmuto is 23.1. Salvador Perez is 20.5.
I mean, he's
Cal
Real
Raleigh
Muto.
17.5. Will Smith 14. Sean Murphy 12.2. I don't think he would get 20 though. I don't think he would get, because
It would depend
Real
on his
Muto's
age.
contract. Well, no, but my comparison was going to be Cal Raleigh just got 17.5 million on a long-term extension, and I think that's a pretty comparable player. Like you look at Cal Raleigh on his Veritek, I believe, averaged like 2.5 WAR. His high was what, 4 about
on BRF.
Raleigh's arguably even better. He's been 3.9, 3.4, 4.7, 1.2. He's 1.2 so far this year. So he's been between 3.4 and 4.7 in his full seasons. Granted, that salary is brought down by it, bought out some of his ARB years. But I think right around 20, maybe at most, like 15 to 20 range, probably, because it's basically, I don't remember at the time, but I don't think Veritek was considered like the best catcher in baseball. He was seen probably was what, a top 5-ish, like
probably
back
top
of the
5.
top
I mean,
5.
who was playing then? You've got was Pudge Rodriguez playing at that point?
Well, let's look his age 2003 year.
Jorge Posada.
Like the catchers in the All-Star game in 2003 were Javi Lopez and Jorge Posada were the starters. So, and then the bench guys were Ramon Hernandez, Paul LaDuca, Veritek. Yeah, he's probably, right around that 5-ish range.
Piazza was playing at that point, but
yeah, I think like 15 and 20 million, but it was surprising. I didn't realize it, but catchers just don't get as much as you would think.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it's almost like running back in the NFL, right? They just run you into the ground kind of situation. Yeah, very. I'm trying to pull up like a batting leaderboard and I can't, so whatever. But yeah, thanks. And again, hit us up, podcast@soxprospects.com. Helpful tip, maybe keep it to like one question that you want us to go in depth on rather than kind of the lightning round 20 questions thing. Makes it more likely we'll read your question on the episode. So, but thank you everyone who reaches out. Thank you all for listening. And I think, Ian, with that, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you to our podcast producer, Daniel Fox. Thank you to the Ludlow Thieves for our intro and outro music, All the Money. Listen to their music wherever it is that you listen. Follow us on social media. The site is @SoxProspects. You can follow Ian at Ian Cundall. That's IANCUNDALL. And follow me at SP Chris Hatfield. As speaking of patreon.com/SoxProspects, we want to thank our next crew of $5 level supporters. That's Michael Stewart, Caleb Farron, Jason Stoneburner, Grayson Sinner, Stephen G. Shaw, Jason Parker, Mike Granger, Jeff Richardson, Dan Gillen, Paul Manish, and Jim Tuttle. Thank you all for your support on patreon.com/SoxProspects. We'll be back next week talking maybe, first month wrap up and that kind of thing. We'll figure out timing where it's looking a little dicey, but we will try and get an episode out. So keep your ears to the feed. Until then, we'll be back in your eardrums soon. Thanks, everybody.